All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Conrado Guerrero. I am the president of SEIU Local 99, and I'm also a building engineer at LAUSD. I hope everybody's doing well out there tonight. Let me welcome you to our reopening our schools safely and equitably webinar today. We'll be discussing some of as many of you have heard, LAUSD, one of our biggest uh, employers, has announced that school will start on August 18th, but not in person. It'll be a remote learning as we have been doing as we finished off the last semester. So we'll be talking about that, and hopefully we'll be able to answer a lot of questions that you might have from these announcements. Uh, Once again, I encourage you guys to download the Zoom app if you're able to. This way you can ask questions and we'll be able to get to those at the end. And as always, if we don't get to your question, one of the reps will get back to you to answer your question. So let me introduce our executive director, Max Arias, now, which will take us to the next part. Max.
Thank you, Conrado, man. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we're going to be focusing on the safe reopening of schools and our principles, and how I know that on this call, on this Zoom, all of you are leaders that are either leading in your sites, at the tables, or in your communities. And so this is a space for us to talk and plan about how we're going to fight back. Right now, as you may have heard, Austin Buettner, superintendent, announced that the schools will only resume in online format. So we have two goals. The goal one is, as we all know, the powers that be, the government itself wants the economy to reopen. And sometimes in the rush, they are not really don't care too much about the workers that do the work and how it may affect them or the students. So understanding, who we are as Local 99. As you know who we are. We drive buses, make sure kids are fed, provide security and safety to kids, one-on-one attention through special ed assistance and TA. And I don't need to say what we all do in every jurisdiction that we represent. The schools cannot reopen without us. Let's just be clear. And we cannot allow the society to push a reopening that's premature, that will risk our members and put the students that we serve health at risk. Therefore, we have a set of principles we're going to go over today on how we engage at every table and every jurisdiction when we are doing our impact bargaining with the employer. Impact bargaining, all of you who talk about bargaining, is basically we have a right to have a bargaining or negotiations over the impact that the decision the employer makes has on our jobs. So the employer reopening in a way that's unsafe has serious impact on our jobs, or unsafe for the students. So we have to make sure that when the schools reopen physically, we use our collective strength and power, which is our labor, to ensure that they're open safely. And we're gonna go over what that means, because that means it cannot be the old normal where we have 40% staffing for buildings and grounds in LAUSD, especially in a new time in which it has to be, the schools have to be extra clean. They're always clean, but now they have to be extra clean. And we know in many places, there's not enough of us to be able to keep schools clean, as an example. So the reality is for the schools to reopen safely physically requires more classified staff. In the college district, same thing. In early ed, same thing, right? In all our jurisdictions. For family childcare providers, it requires also more resources to be able to reopen safely. So that's counterintuitive to what the government is saying, is that they may have to cut. So today we're going to talk about how we push back. So we know the schools are not reopening physically now in August 18th, at least at the beginning of the school year. And like LAUSD, probably most school districts are already starting to do the same. So now when we talk about impact bargaining, we have to talk about the decision to go online affects the students, the service we provide, and your jobs, right? Because many are wondering what happens if the schools don't reopen. What do I do, right? So I'm going to give you brief information that the governor has secured that there will be no layoffs, so there will continue to be funding for all teachers, of course, the teachers always, and bus drivers, food service workers, buildings and grounds. Now, the state has not said anything around paraprofessionals, special ed assistants, community reps, IT workers, and everybody else. But we have a union, so the boss cannot just go and do what they want with our positions. We know that is why it is important, as we are doing this work of doing the impact bargaining, to be able to defend every layoff tooth and nail and demand an expansion to the services that we provide, right? So now that we're going to talk about online briefly. Online learning, we know, has many of students have fallen behind, and many students that are children of our members are falling behind. And it has to do a lot with a divide in technology, lack of access to technology, therefore lack of access to classes. And it's disproportionate, and it's affecting Black students and brown students the most because we happen to be more disadvantaged economically. As we know, we're in the middle of what we are fighting for racial justice, right? So to have an appropriate online education, if that's how it's going to be right now, and even when it's staggered, it requires all of us to do work. And that is what we have to remind the district. Students won't learn without the one-on-one support of special ed assistants, teachers assistants, other paraprofessionals, as well as campus monitors, community reps, calling the parents, etc. As we demand to bargain, we are going to bargain over making sure that the education the students are receiving is quality, and that our members are supporting and enhancing this education every step of the way. So I just wanted to frame the moment right now, and I want to just transition briefly. So it's a little long-winded, but there's a lot of information. Bear with me. There'll be more opportunity to go over some questions later, and we have a special guest too. We are going to go over the principles for reopening the schools. Now, I want to just briefly talk about the principles to reopen the schools, what they are about. I don't know if we have the preamble here, Blanca. 1 second, please. I'm trying to get that.
Oh,
the
no,
way we went,
no.
we don't need the preamble. Just let me share. When we had this conversation with member leaders, our e-board members, and others, probably yourself, around these principles, it was in the moment in which we were, there was, as you know, the violent murder of George Floyd and others that we have been protesting and have been a part of denouncing, to the point where we demanded defunding of LAPD and also of LAUSD police, and that these resources be allocated to Black communities. We also just said we are about to embark on reopening the schools. We have a chance to demand improvement, and then we're going to go into full contract bargaining at LAUSD in just about every jurisdiction. So let's create a set of principles. I just wanted to remind you what this was about. We know that racism is structural. It's about the structures. It's not about the individuals, but there's a lot of rotten individuals in those structures that surely are racist, for sure. So to change those structures, it takes, through the union, it takes purpose. We can't just do union work and expect the structure to change. That means tackling at the core what causes structural racism. And remember, we analyzed at the last webinar, structural racism in the school district is two ways. One is schools being funded disproportionately and inequitably, that affects, that there's less resources for Black and brown communities. It affects the students, but it also affects the workers. The workers, Black and brown women mostly, which are classified employees, have jobs that don't have the retirement benefits or the healthcare benefits that teachers and administrators and everybody that hangs around Beaudry does. And we know those people look lighter. We have that analysis. So how do we change the structure? Because if we change the structure, we make excellent schools happen, then also jobs will be excellent. So this set of principles is an attempt initially at starting to tackle using the reopening of schools. Can we demand that society fund schools appropriately and safely for this crisis and beyond? And are we as members willing to take action. And we're going to see what that means in pushing back when school districts attempt to cut our jobs because they don't feel we are essential. So let's start with the principles, please, Blanca. Matt, we're going to
Okay, Johan.
Oh,
That
sorry.
first slide.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So the first principle, I'm not going to read the whole thing because we don't want to take all the time, but you can have it right there. And if you have questions about these principles, they're on our website. And then some of these slides can be shared if you want to share with other members that you represent. So number one principle, prioritize safety and cleanliness for all. That means in COVID-19 times, of course, everything we know, we have to have proper PPE. There has to be distancing. People that are vulnerable should not be working and they should not be punished for being vulnerable. That means they should continue to be paid. We have to continue the training on all of this stuff. It includes testing, temperature checks, increased staff. And this all means, guess what? More custodians, more buildings and grounds workers, right? More maintenance workers. It needs more campus monitors. It means more community reps. If we don't, it means more people supporting bus drivers to be able to get the social distances. It means more aides once it opens because you're probably gonna have to be monitoring that children don't wear don't take their masks off. I don't know how you keep a mask on a 5-year-old, but it's probably gonna take a lot of adults. So I'm sharing with you, see, this principle here to reopen our schools is very clearly attached to all the jobs that you do. I don't think anybody would disagree that it is just without you, the schools won't reopen safely. And for you and us to be safe, there needs to be enough of us. So everything we do when we go to the table to meet with the districts, and the districts say, well, we don't really have to give PPE every day and we're gonna push back. That's against the principles. You do. Right? You have to actually just, there's no choice, right? And when we ask the districts, so how do you plan to keep the schools clean? And they're gonna go, well, we're gonna subcontract. We're gonna go, no, you can't do that. And we're gonna fight and fight. They say, we're gonna lay some people off first. No, because we need more people here. No, that's where we need to keep pushing every step of the way. Next slide, please, Blanca. Johan, sorry, thank you. This is principle 2, ensure full support and resources for our most vulnerable students. What does that mean? Right now, we just spoke about how the vulnerable students, all the ones, not only the ones that may have, need a special education needs or support in the language because English is the second language or any myriad of supports or hearing disabled, right, needs the support of you, classified everywhere. From special education assistants to TAs, and we are telling the district, because we know there's not enough instructional time being given by the teachers to the students in the district, our members are ready to support and enhance the distance learning so that the children and students don't fall behind. It also means IT workers to be able to maintain students, and it means supporting the district and in districts in general, making sure that all students also have the equipment they need. And furthermore, and everywhere in LA, as we have seen in the schools, all school districts are ensuring our most vulnerable students eat to the tune, I think LAUSD had over 30 million meals already. So that work is going to continue. So next, Blanca, please. Johan, apologies. Next is focus on our communities. That's principle number 3. Equitable distribution of funds to schools that need it the most. As we spoke, the schools that have the highest needs are the ones that have the least support. There is not enough. If you go to Venice High School versus Torres, you will see the difference in the amount of support of staff that is there to keep the schools clean, making sure that that the work is being done in a safe manner, etc. Right? We need increased staffing and training for food service workers, increased staffing for programs that will keep parents engaged and connected to the child learning, to be able to support parents. We also are going to need increased staffing for school supervision and campus safety aids, if we're going to be doing contact tracing, etc., and securing the safety net services our schools that family needs, such as healthcare, where there's healthcare clinics, a meal. And another thing that will come up later, but community-based, is childcare. As we know, we go on online in an online training right now and on online classes. You as a worker and other essential workers to be able to do the work are going to need childcare. So we're pushing the districts to think about how and support them how we do that, given that we also represent now family childcare providers and other early educators. So that's focused on anything contrary to this is contrary to our principles, and we must push back. Johan, next slide, please. All right, this is the principle number 4 is to recognize the essential role of workers, right? We've heard a lot about heroes and essential workers are heroes. Let's give them a cape and put them on a picture and they're so great, send them some flowers. Well, you want to recognize the role, you better figure out how we're not having, workers in LAUSD classified are not making an average of $25,000 a year. They need to value the contributions. There has to be additional bonus pay for hazard work. Making sure that everybody that doesn't have healthcare has access to quality, affordable healthcare, including family childcare providers, right? Continue to protect their benefits. Basically, holding them to it. As we know, every year they have Classified Appreciation Week. They sometimes remember, then they make horchatas and suspiros, and they give everybody, here you go, have some soda. Wow, you're so great. And again, so we gotta call them on it. So these are some of the ideas that as we negotiate the impact bargaining, we push. Next, please, Blanca. Number 5, bold investments in schools and communities. So we know that California education is underfunded. We're like 46th, or it keeps changing, but we're almost last in the nation at per pupil funding. So as we are fighting to ensure that things reopen, it is really the Board of Education's job to figure out how to get more funding. They're not doing very good at it. So we need to continue to push the state legislature. We need to continue to push, even though it seems crazy and hopeless, but we need to continue to push Trump and the federal government, because we can't just sit here and not, and continue to push California to pass actually a progressive taxation system that actually makes billionaires pay their fair share. We are participating very clearly as Local 99 on Proposition 15, which is called Schools and Communities First. Now it has a number that will bring $12 billion, which is still not enough. So as we are pushing for these principles, because we know to reopen the schools, we are clear now. There needs to be more classified staff to reopen safely. There needs to be a plan. And there also, in the case that they don't open, there also has to be a plan to ensure that all students receive learning. And that plan must include us. And that is where we have to. So I hope this was helpful, a breakdown of each principle to stoke our imagination on when we are sitting there with the boss going over, this is how we need to reopen, we learn to push. And as a reminder, we've learned to take action. I remind us, LAUSD, actually, you were on strike with the teachers. You almost went on strike. You were a day away from strike, and that's the only way you push the boss. LACCD recently, Los Angeles Community College District, the boss was not giving them safe equipment, and they didn't care. The workers took a day, they work stoppage for one day on safety. The boss immediately, now our members there led an agreement that's a model agreement for all the other units. Classified leading the staff, the teachers, classified leading the administrators, classified leading their own bosses. This is how it must be. Again, right now, I want to frame, we have two fights. One, we need to win our family childcare election, which will be over by next week. We're going to hear more about that. But another one is we have Santa Monica, Malibu, unified. Yes, you heard it, Santa Monica, Malibu, they're not broke at all, trying to close all the early ed centers and lay off around 60 workers. Those workers are in fear. They have not had to do this fight back. But there are 35,000, soon to be 50,000 of us at the local. So we can't allow one school district that is rich to just go and scare our members. So there will be an action on Thursday, which is via Zoom, so it's safe, so nobody's gonna get sick. and we need to flood the Zoom in Santa Monica, Malibu. Those members, some of them will be present, some of them are afraid, but we all here need to show solidarity, because also in LAUSD and others, we will also be waging these fights, and we're stronger when we're all in solidarity. So that is, I think, what I had to show. Okay, yeah, that's something I wanted to, sorry, that's all I had to share today. Hope it was helpful. And remember, all this information is available. We'll continue to hear more. But as you're sitting in front of, in those committees that you're all part of, whether it be Labor Management Committee, whether it be the Impact Bargaining Committee, whether it be the Negotiations Committee for the full contract, any where you're representing a member, have a copy of these principles. Have a copy, and any question, this is how we are trying to guide ourselves, because we're never going to be wrong if we follow these, and it's righteous, and that's how we can win. And as you're thinking of how to, when you're doing the impact bargaining at these tables, going over these, things, when the boss is crossing the line, we need to go tell our coworkers, and then we need to organize and protest. And remember, when we're done with this reopener, when we're done with this impact bargaining, we will resume again full contract bargaining, and we will resume every wage reopener that has been paused, but with more power, because we're going to come with momentum and impulse with a strong campaign to reopen the schools. So, so that is what I have. So I hope to see you at the action on Thursday. And now I'm going to pass it on to a video, in which we're going to see a little video of Schools and Communities First.
Actually, Max or Johan, just one quick announcement. I'm going to make it in Spanish. Si tienen alguna pregunta, la pueden escribir en la sección donde está la Q y la A, y se le va a poder contestar la pregunta. Gracias. Okay, Johan, thank you.
We all want the same things for our community. Excellent public schools, good jobs, and safe neighborhoods. And we expect everyone in California to pay their fair share in taxes that make these things possible. But for over 40 years, a commercial property tax loophole has allowed large corporations like Chevron, McDonald's, and Disney to avoid paying their fair share. While these corporations rake in billions of dollars each year, our schools have been underfunded and understaffed for decades. This has led to students with special needs not getting consistent one-to-one attention, not enough custodians to clean classrooms regularly, long lunch lines, and increased stress and injuries among food service workers, and other cuts to school services that impact student learning. Prop 15, the Schools and Communities First Funding Act, will end the tax break for large corporations and reclaim $12 billion a year for our schools, hospitals, parks, and other services. Opponents of the measure are trying to scare us, claiming that the cost of your rent and taxes will go up. But the fact is, it won't affect homeowners, renters, or small business owners. Let's make this happen. Quality schools and stronger communities for all of us. Learn more at SEIU99.org/schools-communities-first.
All right, so that's a little video. If you want to have access to the video, I think it's going to be on our page. It's on our Facebook page, on our website. That it's connected directly to the work we do. As you can see, it's even purple. So now I'm going to introduce to you somebody that I've known for a while, who is actually everybody here probably knows. And that is our field director, the great organizer and fierce at the table that scares the stuffing out of the district when she sits there. Has worked with most of you, I feel. So I want to introduce Pam Stevenson, who's the field director for Local 99. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I hope all is well. So at this time, I'm going to introduce our poll questions. The first one that I will be introducing is, will you vote yes for Proposition 15, Schools and Communities First? So as soon as you finish answering those questions, we'll go to the next one. All right. We're gonna see the results. So 85% says yes, and 13 undecided, and 2% no. All right, thank you for that. Our next question will be, polling question will be, what is your plan to vote? So a few more seconds on this, and then we're gonna come back. All right, 70% has a vote plan, and 30% has a polling place. Looking forward to everybody voting yes. All right, next up, we will be having Miss Elizabeth Parker, Vice President at SEIU Local 99, and Miss Margaret Rodriguez, our internal organizing manager, and they will be presenting the employer updates. Take it away, Miss Margaret.
Thank you, Miss Pam. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be providing a report back for our SoCal jurisdictions. You guys have had an opportunity to hear some of our reopening plans, and so this is an opportunity to hear what's happening from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Next slide, please. So the first employer is MAOF. So MAOF had provided us a layoff notification back in June. We had an opportunity to meet with this employer and the bargaining team. We stressed to this employer in the regards of not being pleased with them talking about the possibility of laying off workers. We met with them on June the 29th and stated that they would not be laying off anyone, which was a victory. The bargaining team was very happy. The next employer is Options. With Options, we currently don't have any field concerns. We have provided the jurisdiction notification of meeting their reopening plans as well as their summer plans. They have responded, and they are still having conversations in regards to what do those plans look like. So additional information will be provided once we start negotiating with that employer. Next slide, please. With our community college district, it's the same updates we've been reporting out. They are still in negotiations for their successor agreement past July the 29th. We are in conversations with this employer to also get their reopening plan. Once their plan is provided, we'll have an opportunity to negotiate that plan and involve the field and the member leaders to execute, to make sure that they're following our reopening guidelines. Next slide, please. Our next employer is LACO as well as Compton. We have had some victories in both jurisdictions. We have also sent these employers their notifications to reopen for their reopening plans as well as their summer plans. So we have received an email response from LACO, and they have stated that they're still talking about what those reopening plans are. Additional information, once again, will be provided as we continue to have these meetings with these jurisdictions. And we are currently waiting for a response from Compton to further be able to share with the report back on their plans. Next slide, please. The next employer is Hacienda La Puente as well as Linwood. With both of the employers, we have also sent notifications, and we have received a response back from Hacienda La Puente, and they are still talking about their reopening plans. These information that has been received has been communicated with the membership, and we are still having conversations. Once we start getting dates, we'll start including the bargaining team, and we'll start that process with them as well. The same thing for Linwood. They, as we were victorious with having their MOU signed back in April to provide them, comp time for the essential workers who have been working in that jurisdiction during this COVID period. We are also in the process of reviewing those plans and still having conversations with Linwood. As soon as additional information is provided, we'll be sharing that report back as well. Next slide, please. So Montague is one of our next employers. They have been provided an email in regards to their reopening plan as well as their summer plans. Additional information will be provided to the group once we receive what they are. The same thing with Pleasant Valley. Their wages and benefits are in place, and we are continuing to have conversations with the employer regarding their plans to move forward with discussions. Next slide, please. So Santa Monica Malibu has a lot going on. We are currently bargaining over layoff notifications. As you heard Max, they are planning and are closing their CDS, which is like their Head Start programs, and it's going to be impacting about 65 employees in that jurisdiction. They're essentially closing out this whole department. We are having we are taking action at their next board meeting on the 16th. We are asking all leaders to be on that call. It's really important that we show solidarity for that action, and we are signing. There's an online petition that we are asking everyone to sign as well. They had a negotiations meeting today, and the employer is still not budging at the table. So even more so, we need to escalate on Thursday. And this employer, we are also working with them and trying to get plans on, their reopening. The CDS and the Head Start is one element of that conversation. And so we are still having those conversations and giving the pushback needed there. And we are asking all of you guys to participate in that. The next employer is TAS, the Accelerated School. Their benefits and wages are in place. TAS has been provided their notification to provide us information on the reopening plan and summer plans. At this time, they're still working on their summer plans, and as soon as we get additional information, we will be reporting back to this group. Next slide, please. The next employer is Torrance. We are currently working to receive answers from their reopening plans. Their benefits and wages are in place. As soon as we get additional information, we will be sharing with this group. Our next employer is Ventura Community College District. They, back in May, ratified their contract, and their wages and benefits are in place, and we are participating in discussions regarding their reopening plans, and additional information will be provided once we start receiving them. Next slide, please. And we are working diligently to ensure members continue to be in a paid status, benefits are in place, and proper personal protective equipment is provided to our workers. I believe that was the last slide for this presentation. And the next presentation will be our LAUSD slides. And our Vice President, Ms. Elizabeth Parker, is going to be sharing information on how the LAUSD table and process is moving.
Thank you, Ms. Margaret. Good afternoon, everyone. See anything? I don't see anything on the slide yet. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. SEIU Local 9 members took action to win all ESY summer school assignments restored to 4 hours. State budget provides layoff protection for K through 4 to 3 classified groups: food service workers, buildings and ground workers, and bus drivers. Paraeducators were not included in protection, but we secured intent language stating that layoffs should be avoided at all costs. We won a victory in reimaging safety at LAUSD by reallocating $35 million from budget funds from school police to programs that support our Black and Brown communities. We are scheduled to meet with LAUSD on July 23rd, 2020 regarding their reopening plans. We have established principles for reopening our schools, prioritizing safety and cleanness for all, ensure full support and resources for our most vulnerable students, recognize and respect the roles and essential school workers, bold investments in schools and communities. Next slide, please. Here you will see a payroll calendar, pay and benefited time. All employees should have received their differential stipend. If an employee has not been paid their stipend, please contact our member resource by submitting an online inquiry. Next slide, please. Our call center continues to answer field questions and concerns. We have negotiating with employers and taken action regarding district guidelines as it pertains to various classifications. Next slide. Take action. Thursday, July 16th from 5:30 to 3:30. Stop cuts and layoffs to early education in Santa Monica, Malibu. Back to school board meeting on Zoom, July 17th, 9 a.m. Tax to Billionaires Car Caravan. Here's the address, 4909 Lakewood Boulevard, Suite 400, Lakewood, California, 9012. On Monday, July the 20th at 12 p.m., strike for Black Lives Car Caravan, starting by parking lot at 5080 Obama Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90016, or take a knee for 8 minutes or 46 seconds. July, tell Congress to pass HEROES Acts. And our last one is now into November the 3rd. Pass Proposition 15, school and community first. I'll pass it on to Margaret Ortiz.
Thank you for that, Elizabeth. The report back for LAUSD. Now we're going to have an opportunity to hear the highlights of our child care campaign. And with that, I introduce Ms. Nanette Rincon, who is our external director.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, actually. Hope everyone's doing well and that you're healthy and safe with your families. We're really excited in the Child Care Campaign to report that we're on day 20 of our GOTV efforts. And as of today, we have received a vote count or a ballot count from the PERB office, which is the Public Employees Relation Board. They've received 8,007 ballots in hand. Woo! Which is really phenomenal. We're very close to our 11,000 ballot count or votes that we want to get out in this election. And so we expect to have our vote count virtually on Friday, the 24th of July. And we expect to have a big victory Zoom on Monday, the 27th. More details to come so that you all can participate and be part of this victorious moment. We're really excited and we want to appreciate all of our school district employees for all of the support they've provided throughout the many years of our fight to get collective bargaining. Thank you very much. And now I need to pass it over to Pam. Sorry.
Thank you for that, Ms. Nanette. Great news. So at this time, I have the honor of introducing to some and announcing to others guest speaker this evening. She is from our house here at Local 99. She was the organizing director here. She went on to be the public organizing project director with International and is now in the top levels of management of our organization, SEIU, as the executive special assistant to Heather Convoy, Executive Vice President of the Public Division. She has been a mentor of mine, a great activist in the labor movement, and a powerful African-American leader here in Los Angeles, Ms. Nanika Lee.
Wow. Thank you, Pam. That was a lot of love. I really appreciate it. And I just appreciate you and Max and Conrado and the whole Local 99 family because, you know, in addition to all of those things that you said about me, I was born and raised here in LA. I am a product of USD. I am a Black woman and I'm a mother. So all of what you all talk about, you know, isn't just work for me. It really is very personal. But I want to just appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today about the work that our union is doing in support of the movement for Black lives. And it really is, you know, with a lot of honor that I talk about this because, you know, we all know, share my screen here because I have a couple of slides that I want to share with you all. So I'm gonna need some thumbs up for folks to let me know that I'm actually, can you all see that? Yes, okay, good. So first, I just wanna start off with this very powerful, what I thought to be a very powerful quote. And because I think it summarizes really well what SEIU's work is about in the movement for Black lives. So the quote is this: even before George Floyd's life was so horrifically taken, the normal everyone keeps talking about going back to wasn't working for us. From racially motivated attacks to being forced to go to work without protective equipment or hazard pay in the name of the economy, our lives have not been valued. We cannot go back to that. We must move forward. And that was from Glenn Brown, who is also an SEIU member and an airport wheelchair attendant. But I wanted to start off with that quote because, like I said, I really feel like it embodies what the work at SEIU is that we are currently doing around racial justice and the movement for Black lives. The whole world is seeing what Black and brown communities have known for decades. The system is broken and always has been for too many people. Working people are suffering under like a triple crisis. That's what we're in right now, a triple crisis. We have systemic racism and unchecked police brutality. We have a public health emergency that is ravaging communities of color, and a rigged economy that only works for a very few at the top. And only one of those is new. That's what's interesting about it. You think about all of what's happening right now in our country with COVID, with, racial injustice, with the economy in such a huge crisis. But Black and brown communities have been dealing with the racism. Black and brown communities have been dealing with the economy, in a crisis. It's so interesting. I don't know how many of you can relate to those moments where you see some really smart person on the news announce job numbers, or they talk about the economy. And I'm talking about pre-pandemic, where they will say, unemployment is down to historic lows and the economy is doing so great. And I know I've sat and watched those at times, and I'm thinking, right, well, not for the people who can't pay their rent this month, right? So anyway, I guess the point that I'm just trying to make to you all is that this idea that at some point we will all be able to go back to normal is not what our union is really about, because we believe that normal was not good for many of our members, and we don't want to go back to that. So our International Executive Board, which Max, your leader, Max Arias, is a part of, recently made a decision to stand up for Black lives. So shortly after the death of George Floyd, and amidst, the entire country in protest, our union decided to take a stand. And I just really want people to, I'm gonna walk you through what we mean by that, taking a stand, but this is significant and wasn't an easy thing to make happen. Because when you think about, we're, Local 99 is 45,000, workers strong here in LA County. But if you can imagine, we are 2 million members across this country and in Canada and in Puerto Rico. And while we here at Local 99 understand, what the struggle for Black and brown communities looks like, many of those members of SEIU, their experiences, I will just say that. I won't say they don't understand, but I will say those experiences are different. So the decision to take a stand, it's taking a lot of work. But I want to share with you all, what this idea of taking a stand means. And I'm having some technical difficulties here. Let me try to get us past this slide. Okay, so our International Executive Board passed a resolution in support of the movement for Black lives. It's not a 10, 20 page document. It's literally one page, I believe, maybe two, but it's very short and brief, and it gets right to the point about what this resolution is and what it does. So let me share it with you. So there's a lot of words, so I'm gonna summarize it all for you. So SEIU stands in solidarity with the movement for Black lives. I've already talked about that. But to that end, the union has committed to take the following actions in support of the movement for Black lives. So the first action is joining and supporting federal, state, and local demands with elected officials and candidates, including using our influence to ensure that the movement for Black lives has a seat at the table. So the key word here on number one that I really want everybody to pay attention to is joining and supporting. I was very, very intentional about not saying leading, because we are the biggest and the baddest when it comes to organizing workers, but SEIU can't lead everything. And I think one of the things that we had to really recognize in this moment is that this movement was already in motion, and we would be as bad as the folks who oppose us if we stepped into this movement and tried to take it over, right? So that is not what our role is in this movement for Black Lives. Our role is to join and support. So the second action we're taking is to mobilize and demonstrate alongside the movement for Black Lives. That one's pretty straight to the point. Number three, we are providing material support to the movement for Black Lives. And let me tell you what we mean by material support. We are talking about, when it is time to, think about how are we when it is time to make decisions about how to use your hard-earned dues dollars. We want to, make sure that it is in service to organizations and things that are about lifting up you, our members. And that means, as I've been talking about the movement for Black Lives. So as we talk about standing up for racial justice and supporting or standing in solidarity, we are going to also be doing that with actual resources. When it is time to show up and put boots on the ground, we will do that. When it is time to figure out how do we pass laws to ensure that Black people are not dying at the hands of police, we are going to do that. So I just want to be clear that us standing up is not just about writing a statement and then moving on and feeling proud of ourselves that we said the right thing. Because I'm sure many of you have seen how many corporations and other groups have come out to say they stand for Black lives. But my question is, what are you? And so one of the things we are doing is providing material support. Number 4, we are working in partnership and collaboration with the movement for Black Lives to hold corporations accountable for the ways they maintain structural racism. And, this, again, corporate accountability is not something new to SEIU. As Max went through the principles that you all are setting forth in terms of safely reopening schools, and schools and communities first, it's all throughout the work that you all are already doing. So holding corporations accountable, we think that they need to not only pay their fair share, but also recognize how much they contribute to the problem. And so, and then we have 2 more actions that we're going to take. Number 5, we are leading in our role as a labor union by helping to build and deepen the investment of the labor movement. So that means getting in front of our sisters and brothers who, in other unions like the teachers or, the Teamsters or, I could go, the list goes on and on. But we're not just thinking about what is SEIU doing, we're trying to bring others along with us. We're talking about holding public security unions accountable to racial justice, including establishing a dialogue with every affected local in our own union in support of the movement for Black Lives. And that's really important because what a lot of people don't know is that in addition to all of the school workers and classified workers that SEIU represents, we represent healthcare workers and janitors and security guards. People know about those because we talk about those a lot. But SEIU also represents a lot of public safety workers, right? So corrections officers in the prisons, police officers. We do have local unions that represent public safety workers. And so this idea that, they too could potentially be responsible for some of the racist actions that have taken place means that we have to stand up and figure out how we address that. We can't just turn our heads. We can't just be that is going to protect and stand up for or turn a blind eye to Black people. We're just not going to do it anymore. And even if it means, standing up to people who are members of our own union. And lastly, on this point, engaging our own membership and promoting cross-racial solidarity is so vital. And so our last action that we're going to take is we are renewing our pledge to becoming an anti-racist organization as laid out in our 2016 convention resolution. And I think the key word here is 2016. So becoming an anti-racist organization is not something that happened, the moment that George Floyd was murdered in Minnesota. It wasn't something that SEIU made a knee-jerk reaction to do. It is something that our leaders have taken on and have been committed to for more than 4 years now. And so as part of this moment and process, we are recommitting ourselves to becoming an anti-racist organization, and we'll continue to take action, again, not just words, but action in service to that. So that's what SEIU is doing in service to, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to unshare the screen. So I know that you all have a lot of other business that you need to get to, and I won't take up too much more time, but I did, just want to say that there is a lot of work happening throughout California and across the country. And, July 20th, which you all, the sister who went through the calendar earlier laid out for you, July 20th is a big day because we already knew that it was going to be a national day, that we were going to be striking and taking action everywhere. But in this moment, we felt like it was appropriate to shift gears and adjust so that that day is now us really about us standing up and striking in respect of Black lives. And so I just wanted to end on that note and encourage everyone, whether it be to take a knee or to be part of a car caravan. I really encourage you to join your sisters and brothers in SEIU and take some action on that day, because these are our communities that we're fighting for. So on that note, I'll end it. And am I turning it back over to Conrado or Max?
Yes, Naniki, I'll get it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Great information. All right, so as you can see, to start to break down systemic racism, we need to start where we work and where we live. We need to take action in our contracts, in our work sites, and our work sites, and especially in politics. So as a review of some of the actions that were coming up that our Madam Vice President gave, it leads us into our next poll question number 3. So tell us, how will you take action? Check everything you're ready to do, and we'll follow up with you with more information. Okay. We're waiting on the results real quick. All right, here we go. All right, everybody supporting the schools and communities first. The Santa Monica Malibu Unified Action, that's on Thursday at 5:30. I encourage most of you, it's going to be at 5:30. If you guys have the time, please log on. It's going to be online webinar. Um, we need to really support our brothers and sisters there at Santa Monica Malibu. We got to show we got to be able to flex our muscle now. So let's do it there. So thank you for participating in our poll questions. Next, I'm gonna bring it over to, well, we're gonna do the question and answers. And just a reminder, I encourage you to download the Zoom app on your computer, on your mobile device for your question and answers. También pueden hacer preguntas en español. As always, we have some of your questions have been answered as we've been going through this meeting, but we do have so many that haven't gone to yet. If we don't get to your question on this webinar, we will get back to you through one of the reps. They'll contact you with the information that you need. So every question that is posted will be answered. So now I'm going to turn it over to our communications director, Blanca Gallegos. Blanca?
Yes, great. Thank you, Conrado. So I'll help facilitate some of the questions. As Conrado said, we're going to try to get to as many as we can today, but if they're not answered, you will be getting a follow-up from organizers. So we have a lot of questions about layoffs. The first one is, I'm concerned about layoffs or hours being cut. Are positions going to be cut as a result of instruction continuing online? And when do school districts and employers, when are they required to send out layoff notices? I'm going to direct that. I know, Max, you addressed some of this in your presentation, so I'll direct this question about layoffs to you.
All right, so just the first steps is you saw the protections from the state for 3 classifications, but school bus, bus drivers, anybody who works in food service and buildings and ground workers. Those are, then the rest of workers, classifications have specific protection from the state that says that layoff will be a last result. Now, within what we are speaking about our jurisdictions, nobody, the layoff notices, if they want them to be effective in September, usually take around 60 days. So they have to give a 60-day notice. So they would have already been issued. We don't expect any more layoffs right now. Of course, the boss can surprise us, but that is why, that is why it is important right now. In LAUSD, basically, they have done some cuts that they do every year to community reps and campus aides, and we're pushing back on those. So if you are in those classifications and are affected, please stay in touch, because we are going to push back every single one of those in LAUSD. But right now, there is none pending. Furthermore, the superintendent of LAUSD said that there will be no layoffs. And our members, you have been engaged in online learning. The goal, we spoke about impact bargaining. The goal of us talking about all this impact bargaining and pushing the boss at the table is to enforce and ensure that they are not subcontracting and that you are all engaged in the work. There is a lot of work. So the short answer is there has been no more layoff issues except the ones you heard about on this call, Santa Monica, Malibu. And in the case of LAUSD, is hours cut mostly, as well as some transfers. We don't expect any more. Surprises happen, so of course, all of us have to keep our ears on the ground. And that is why impact bargaining is important. Look at it as, instead of waiting for us to defend ourselves from the boss laying us off, we are using these bargaining, impact bargaining, as an offensive tool. And we sit there and say, Mr. School District, to reopen the schools, you do not have enough building and ground workers. What are you going to do about it? We're telling them ahead of time they need more instead of waiting for them to cut. See what I mean? And that is, we want to approach every single, and if they try and lay anybody off, anybody, we all need to just be fierce and stand up for it. Because remember, the district, as you know, does not really cut teachers. Because when they cut teachers, the teachers go and they fight, right? We are now in the same boat. We have learned to fight. So the minute the districts try and come after us, we all have to be ready to fight just as fiercely. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Our next question is about payment. Will we continue to get paid even though we are not in a classroom setting? And the second part is, will we be assured of receiving hazard pay if we need to report to work? I'll hand that over to Pam or Max if you also want to address
Hi,
that.
everyone. So the answer to that question is definitely that is part of our what we will be negotiating as we get back to the tables after we discuss the reopenings. But that is definitely some of the proposals that we will be submitting. Just remember to follow up with your with the website, because we try to make sure as we get these agreements from the employers that we posted so that you can have real-time information. But these are things that we will be proposing. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Pam. The next question is regarding members who have an underlying health condition or are high risk of contracting the COVID-19 virus. Will they be able to stay home, and do they need to use their sick time or other personal benefited leave time if they need to stay away from work and if they're being required to report to work? Pam, you want to address that?
Well, I know that these were things that we were dealing with as soon as the epidemic kicked off and the schools closed around middle part of March. And we fought for that and wanted, but largely because we had the executive order supporting that, and we had language to have leverage with the employers. But most definitely, everything that we had negotiated and fought for when this epidemic kicked off, we would definitely be trying to fight for it right now. Again, negotiations, we are setting up dates so that we can have these conversations and discussions with our bargaining teams from each employer. And as we get these proposals across the tables and get their responses, we'll make sure that we have this uploaded to our website so that you can see. If we do not get it, everyone must be prepared to take action. That is what we've been talking about since the beginning of this webinar, about how we make these changes. Nothing that we have experienced since March has come easy. We've been fighting along the way. LSCCD, they took action and they won. Santa Monica, you hear that they're there right now pushing on some things. We have to take action. It's going to take all of us. It's nothing separate. We're not separate. We're all together. So when we move left, you move left. When you move right, we move right, right? So look for those notifications when we tell you that they are pushing back at the table on these questions that you are asking. We're going to be turning to you to say it's time for us to move. So yes is the answer, that we are going to be proposing those things and we are going to be fighting for those things, and we are waiting for dates from the employers to sit down. Actually, we've been demanding dates. Let's say it that way. Those things have been sent out. So we'll be updating you as we move across each table. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Pam. The next question is about contract negotiations. What is happening with contract negotiations and wage reopeners? When can we expect to see our wage increase? I'll direct that to Max.
All right, so they have been on pause, as you know, because of the COVID-19. So when we talk about reopening schools, impact bargaining, as I shared with you, that leads to the full contract negotiations. The raise, it's gonna depend on how much we push. And I wanna remind everybody what it took last time. LAUSD offered a 1% and wouldn't move until you said we're striking you. So I expect that this time, the raise we get will depend on the amount of action we put, but we should be poised and ready. But the technical definition is this is the specific answer. Currently, we have been paused, as you know, because we're fighting for resource. In places where they were almost done with the contract, they managed to settle, such as Ventura. I want to congratulate those members that settled right when the pandemic hit and ratified actually as well. So right now, the goal for the reopening of the school that we've been talking about, when I keep saying impact bargaining, is to have the same negotiating team go to the table, start the demands for reopening, and then transition, hopefully around August or so, to again, finishing the reopener for LAUSD, to continue to demand a raise for the year that just passed, 2019-2020. So we will continue to fight in LAUSD to get the raise we missed, because it's still your raise and we need to fight and get it. And then we start fighting and bargaining for the future raises to expand healthcare to those that don't have it, to demand that there be more of you to be able to do the work, to demand that there be more hour available for special ed assistants and others as they need to make sure that jobs are better. We need to also continue to demand for more educational opportunities for all, and so that, for example, teachers, assistants to be able to not have to pay for the studies up ahead, but have it, or for any of us that want to become a teacher, an IT worker, a building and ground, a bus driver, to have the education. So that's what's coming. So in the same as with every jurisdiction, you saw the report, Santa Monica Malibu is also going to be doing, talking about reopeners. Other jurisdictions are completely open. So just a reminder, stay tuned with the reopening conversation. This is gonna flip immediately into full contract bargaining.
Okay, thank you, Max. And this will be our final question for this meeting. And this is regarding the summer bridge payment. When can members expect to see their summer bridge fund checks? I'm gonna direct that one to Lester.
Hi, everyone. So if you work at LAUSD, then those summer bridge payments are supposed to go out this week. Remember, you were given the option of one payment or two payments. And so if you ask for everything in one payment, you will get that full payment in this first round of checks. If you ask for it to be split up into two payments, then you'll get one in this first round and one about a month from now in on or about August 15th.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lester. So as we mentioned, if you did submit a question, you will be followed up. You'll receive follow-up from one of the organizers to address your question. And to close this out, I'm going to hand it over to Max.
Thank you. I think we've had a lot of information, so I just really want to reiterate how important it is to stay the work that you are doing as leaders, to continue that sometimes feels thankless because you go to endless Zoom meetings or meetings, you are talking to your coworkers to take action. It gets frustrating because some coworkers don't have time. It's really frustrating. Sometimes it feels thankless, but it's also rewarding. So continue to stay engaged, continue to talk to as many members as possible. And let's I just want to remind all of us, what is the power that we have as members? Remember, the administration, the school districts, the college districts, the state, the boss, they own their means of production. That means they manage the building, they manage the budget, they manage the schools. But nothing happens without what? Without your work. It is your work that is the power. And it is not the individual work. It is the collective work of all of you that creates your power. Therefore, we all have to stay members. And when the time comes, after we've talked at the table, after we've reminded everybody, every politician, and everybody in the city that how education workers, classified employees are not being valued, and when we keep fighting for those students that we serve every day with love, then when the time comes to take action, that is the power. That is what the bosses are afraid of. They're afraid you're just not going to work. And in a district the size of LAUSD and the size of LA, that is ultimately where our power lies. So everything we do, impact bargaining, all of that comes from that power. Doesn't mean we have to go striking for everything. That is not what that means, right? That means that one time we created a credible threat and told LAUSD we're walking out. Ever since then, LAUSD has had to change how they interact. We can't stop fighting. So I want to close with that, and I would like to see if there's anything else that President Conrado or Vice President Elizabeth Thomas would like to add before we close.
Max, I think you summed it up pretty well. Stay vigilant, everybody. Stay safe out there. Please participate in the webinars. Please participate in Zoom meetings to support our brothers and sisters in Santa Monica. Participate as much as you can. Thank you.
Everyone just stay safe and have an enjoyable evening. Max, you said it all, and good night to everyone.
All right. Good night, everyone. Thanks.